Hi, I'm Iris Fu, and your host for How'd You Do That? I'm an advisor at Bullseye Admissions and an incoming freshman at Stanford University studying computer science and economics. This season on How'd You Do That, we're sitting down with our network of Bullseye advisors to ask them about their accomplishments, successes, failures, and college journeys. Do you want to know how to get into an Ivy League as a first-gen low-income student? Or how to get into Harvard for both undergrad and medical school? The medical school has a 2% acceptance rate. What about how to get into the music industry? Win a Fulbright scholarship? We're diving into all these impressive feats and more this season to ask our advisors, how'd you do that? Hi Anya, welcome to the Bullseye Admissions How'd You Do That series. Thank you for taking your time to talk with us today. So I guess to start off, you've been involved in the startup community, and how are you able to have some of the successes that you've had so far? Like, what do you think has led you to become quote unquote successful?
So I think that's a difficult question, but I would point to a very commonly repeated adage in the startup world to address your question. And that phrase is, your ideas are worthless, it's all about execution. And the reason that this is a phrase that's really often repeated in the startup world is because there's this notion, if you're not involved in entrepreneurship, that ideas are everything, that all that you need to be successful is a great idea and then everything sort of falls into place. But that's really not the case. In the entrepreneurship world, if you have a decent idea, chances are that somebody else has thought of it. And all that really differentiates a good or a decent or even a failed venture from one that has staying power is a great team, really tactical marketing, and aligning with the right investors if investment is the right strategy for your startup. I think that what's really guided my approach is that I'm focused on recruiting right people into the right positions, connecting with the right stakeholders and advisors to kind of enrich the ecosystem around the companies that I'm a part of, and making sure that I take money from people that are aligned with my vision and can connect me with the resources to strengthen the company.
What did you learn through the process of building a startup that you wish you knew when you started?
I would first point to my experience in undergrad as being a very formative process of kind of shaping my approach to startups. I actually interned the summer after my sophomore year in the public sector, thinking that I wanted to work for local or state level government. In working for local government, I actually encountered a lot of quality of life data that was collected from the community that the government was in, noting that people wanted to eat healthy but didn't really have the money or the means to purchase the amount of fruits and veggies that they wanted to. So what that led to was myself and a friend founding a low-cost produce delivery service in North Carolina. That company, we started our junior years, and we eventually ended up doing the Duke Startup Challenge, which is a year-long venture competition that awards the grand prize winner $50,000 to scale the venture. And we actually ended up winning that, which provided us a lot of ability to scale and test our proof of concept. And I think in going through this process, what I really learned is not to get fixated on perfection. People think that in order to launch a venture, the idea needs to be perfect, the execution needs to be perfect, the team needs to be perfect. But in reality, when you're launching, you need to launch typically a minimum viable product, which is a scrappy version that encompasses the major features of the service or the product that you want to provide. And then you get lots of customer feedback and iterate from there. So it's less about fixating on what you think is perfect and more about testing the market and seeing what customers actually respond to.
So you briefly mentioned the startup challenge or incubator at Duke. So what do you think set your team apart to win that challenge?
Yeah, I think that it really did come down to having traction data. And basically when you go to investors for money, the number one thing that they'll look for is that you have hard numbers suggesting that customers want to buy your product or service. The data really backed the value proposition of what we were offering, and we painted a really clear picture for what we would do with the money. Investors are different. They all have different subjective criteria for what they care about. They all invest in different sectors. And so it's really key to, when you're starting out, evaluate all of the investors in your network or all of the potential people that you could reach out to with a cold call or an email. It's really key to sort of understand, okay, what are the universe of investors that are available, and how do I target investors that will really care about the company that I'm putting out. So it's really more about investor company fit than anything. And so it's really key just to stay focused, to keep reaching out to people, and to not let prior lack of interest in your company deter you from raising funds.
So lots and lots of persistence.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then I also saw that you're a financial markets analyst. Is that like investment banking or something else?
When I graduated from Duke, I worked on Wall Street. I was not an investment banker. I actually worked in sales and trading. I was sitting on a trading floor. I was speaking with all sorts of clients, from portfolio managers at hedge funds to people in the treasury department at large consumer products firms. My team was doing is we were trying to sell them trade strategies, not for stocks or bonds, or the typical things that people think of on trading floors, but commodities, things like gold, silver, oil, chocolate, these sorts of things that a lot of companies and investors see as assets that are worthy of investing into. The difference between sales and trading is that the trader is the one that physically executes the deal on the markets, and you have to get a specific certification to be able to engage in the financial markets in that way. The salesperson is the person that interacts with the client and facilitates that deal. It's not just a money thing, it's very psychology embedded as well.
Okay, so what about for students hoping to go to Wall Street after college? What's one piece of advice you would have for them?
So my advice to students that are interested in pursuing a finance career is to really do your research. I know that this may seem redundant or obvious advice, but I think that there are a lot of preconceptions that people have about Wall Street when they first hear about it or think that it's something that they want to do. And in interviews, what the interviewers are typically looking for is evidence that you understand what their team does and that you have a sense of how you might be able to contribute to that given the skills and the talents that you have. And the piece that a lot of people don't do as well at is understanding what the team does.
Awesome. So how did, working on Wall Street as well as in the startup world impact you as an advisor, and did it inform what you brought to the table?
Of great importance in the startup world and being a salesperson is communication. It's really about telling a story of why an investor needs to invest in your company. It's about telling a client a story of why this trade strategy that we're pitching is the right trade strategy for them. And similarly, I see students putting together college applications as explaining to an admissions committee why they should accept them into their community and what value their unique attributes, skills, talents, personal experiences will bring to that college community. And I think that this is an approach that informs a lot of the work that I do with clients. We really focus a lot on developing a narrative that explains how a student's unique past experiences have informed their academic passions and will add significant value to a college community. Like, who will that student be once they step onto campus? How will they fit into the student body? And I really do see that approach as directly informed by my experience in sales and in startups.
So in general, how has your experience with Bullseye been like?
My experience with Bullseye has overall been really humbling in terms of what students have taught me. When people traditionally think about an advising role, they think of it as very one directional. They think of the advisor providing insight to a mentee or a student. But, I've found that students' diverse experiences have taught me a lot about how to express certain ideas in writing, or have provided me with insight on how I might want to approach a certain situation. For example, right now I'm working with a fantastic student that is an international student and belongs to a cultural background that is not traditionally as represented in her home country. And she is focusing a lot of her application on what it's been like, being a minority in her community, and how that has brought unique value to her perspective and has informed the way that she's approached, academic situations, things in her extracurricular life. And I find her approach so fresh and unique, and it's actually, even listening to her and working with her has shaped the way that I interact with customers and clients, and kind of see myself as, a woman of color in a very white male dominated startup world. So I think that there is a lot to be learned from students. Bullseye students are so talented and multidimensional, and I feel like I've benefited a lot from interacting with them. In addition to, of course, giving them insight on how to structure their applications and root their work in strategy.
Yeah, I second that. I think Bullseye there's like a self-selecting process of like attracting the most ambitious high schoolers out there. And it's a really great community to be in. Yeah. All right, so my last question for you is, what has your favorite moment as a Bullseye advisor been?
I was working with a student who essentially was really grappling with her experience as a person of color in a majority white community. And obviously this is an experience that I've also had. I'm a person of color, and I grew up in a predominantly white town and went to a predominantly white college and work in an industry that has a very large gender skew as well. So we were kind of speaking about our experiences with being different or out of place in the communities that we belong to. And we were having a conversation of how we would make this aspect of her experience central to her application materials. And she had kind of refined the messaging of something that she wanted to talk about and potentially write her Common App essay about. And she articulated it in this way that was so unique and insightful. And we kind of arrived at it after just having this long, hour-long conversation where we were really open and honest with each other. And what she said was so profound and so transformative in terms of her realizing what this experience meant to her, that she actually started tearing up a little bit. And it really just showed me how powerful it is when students are able to articulate the experiences that have made an impact on their perspective, and how transformative narrative building is. And like the college application process, obviously it's something that is a means to an end. You're filling out these applications to achieve a goal of getting into a school that you like. But I really encourage students to see it as an opportunity to be introspective and to learn what matters to them and really put themselves on the page. Because ultimately those applications are the ones that resonate most with people, and also self-discovery is really important going through the process.
Bullseye has an incredibly talented network of advisors who have done some amazing things, and Anya is no different. I hope you guys took something away from her experience starting a startup, reaching out to people, and just not being afraid of putting yourself out there and getting what you want done. We'll see you on the next episode of How'd You Do That?